The diplomatic tightrope has snapped hours after President Trump vowed to send more weapons to Ukraine and expressed stark disapproval of Vladimir Putin. Russia retaliated with a brutal, unprecedented aerial assault. Also, next story takes a look at how the Trump-Putin bromance is all but over.
A deafening roar echoed across the Ukrainian skies. Russia launched a colossal aerial assault over 700 kamikaze drones, ballistic missiles and cruise rockets pounding Ukraine from east to west in a punishing overnight blitz. The attack, the most intense since Russia's full-scale invasion began, is Moscow's violent response to US President Donald Trump's surprise turn, vowing fresh weapons for Ukraine and openly rebuking Putin's war.
We're not happy with Putin. I'm not happy with Putin. I can tell you that much right now, because he's killing a lot of people. And a lot of them are his soldiers and their soldiers, mostly. And it's now up to 7,000 a week, and I'm not happy with Putin.
Trump also reportedly proposed that Germany sell one of its own Patriot batteries to Ukraine, with the US and Europe sharing the cost. This coordinated approach is seemingly designed to send a clear message to Russia: the West will not stand by idly, as Ukraine is battered by waves of missiles and drones. The US president has been long criticized by his European allies for his soft stance on Vladimir Putin. Since returning to the White House, Trump has spoken with the Russian leader 4 times, often opting for diplomatic engagement over direct confrontation. However, the recent surge in violence appears to have tested his patience, prompting a more assertive stance. Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky has welcomed the shift. Just last week, he described his latest phone call with Trump as the most productive yet, hinting at a new phase of cooperation between Kyiv and Washington.
Today I instructed the Minister of Defense of Ukraine and the Chief of the General Staff to intensify all contacts with the American side. We now have the necessary political statements and decisions, and they must be implemented as soon as possible to protect our people and our positions.
Zelensky is in Rome for a high-stakes Ukraine recovery conference seeking to rally international support for his country's reconstruction and resilience. As Russia intensifies its attack with every passing day, it seems that Kyiv has got one thing which matters most for its survival: the support of Donald Trump. Bureau Report, WION World is One.
Joining us live on the broadcast from Sterling, Virginia is retired Lieutenant Colonel Daniel L. Davis. He's a military expert and host of Daniel Davis Deep Dive on YouTube. Thank you so much for joining us on WION. Trump says that he's angry with Vladimir Putin and announces new weapons for Ukraine. So is this so-called Trump-Putin bromance that people talk about, is it over now?
Have a fresh start. Job.
And I'm talking about why Trump himself thinks that was going to result in some change on the Russian side. The Russians have been willing to negotiate and talk to Trump since day one. They have said so after he got elected and before he came into office, and every point since then. But every time they do, they are crystal clear in saying that we will only have a ceasefire, much less an end of war negotiation, until the core issues, the root causes, as they say, have been addressed. And they say no NATO in Ukraine, demilitarization, denazification, and the possession of all the 4 provinces included, plus Crimea, that they annexed in 2022. And they've never backed down from that. So if Trump thinks that he's having a good negotiation and a good discussion with Putin, but they're not talking about those issues, then the Russians have said at every single level, we will continue fighting. We will either get what we want at the negotiating table, or we will continue fighting. And they're doing exactly what they say. So it's puzzling to me why it's like no one's listening to what the Russian side is saying, because it's matched by what they're doing. And now then, I've just got to tell you, sending a few more interceptor missiles will not have any impact whatsoever on even the tactical outcome, much less the strategic outcome.
And we see President Trump really recalibrating his response when it comes to his talks with the Russian president. He's now openly saying that his discussions aren't leading to peace. So where do we go from here?
Well, that's really the problem. What is all this going to mean? And what it's going to mean is exactly what it has for a long time, that Russia will just continue to methodically chew through the Ukrainian defenses, to chew through the Ukrainian army, until at some point it's just going to buckle. And Russia is probably going to take not just the 4 oblasts that they have annexed, but probably 4 additional, possibly 6 additional, as they currently have troops and they're fighting in additionally the Sumy and the Kharkiv region in addition to those 4 others. That's what's really at stake here, and why I am so adamant that the West, and certainly the United States leading, should do everything they can to reach negotiated settlement now, while it's only 4 provinces. Because if we continue on, whether we give more interceptor missiles or not, the likelihood, almost the certainty, is that Russia will continue until they have claimed everything, probably up to the Dnieper River, that they want.
And do you think that the Russians can change their stances and reactions to the changing stance of the Trump administration?
The Trump administration has literally been all over the map. I mean, at first they were coming in, and Trump did, I'm going to end this in a day, and then it was 100 days, and then it was, well, we're days away from walking away if we don't get a deal, and then they didn't do any of those things. 3 times they have paused ammunition, weapons, or intelligence, and then 3 times they have gone back. So it appears to me that the Russians aren't listening or paying any attention to anything the West does, because the West doesn't seem to know what it wants to do, but the Russians do. So I think that they're just going to listen. They'll probably still be polite and have conversations, but at the end of the day, they're going to keep on with their military operations. And we've seen a continual rise from the beginning, from about March of this year, where both on the ground and the air, the Russians have continued to ramp up their operations and increase the pressure on the Ukraine side. And I don't see any end to that in sight.
Yeah, they've really doubled down. Thank you so much, retired Lieutenant Colonel Daniel Davis. It's always a pleasure speaking to you, sir. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you a lot.